Hey everybody, welcome to the Dad Challenge Podcast. My name's Josh. Thanks for joining me. Today we're talking about Sean Feucht, who's effed. Now, I know a lot of you people come here for the family vlogging stuff, and I get it, but sometimes I gotta talk about the church world because it's where I come from, and the tea is piping hot. If you don't know anything about Sean Feucht, get ready. Let's go. Okay, guys, so you know, if you've heard my story about why I'm an ex-pastor, you understand how I feel about the church. And that was like, I did that video like 4.5 years ago. Not much has changed about my feelings towards the church in the past few years, but not much has changed about my faith either. Now, a lot of people are like, they're like, Josh, you believe in God, but you bully people, you're a dickhole, you're an asshole. Yes, and yes. It's something I struggle with, absolutely. Someone is a faith-based person, but at the same time, I understand why I do it. I'm petty with a purpose. I've got a reason for the snark to bring awareness and all that kind of stuff. And I am quite aware that it's not Christian behavior. All that to be said, I don't really consider myself a Christian, right? I'm a Christ follower. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the Bible. I believe in all those things. Really, really important to me. But the traditional sense of the Christian, the church-going guy, I'm just not that guy anymore. I'm not that person. And I think my faith is stronger for it. Now, if you go to church, I think it's cool. I think you should. I'm not trying to disparage people from going to church. I think you should find a great church. I'm trying to disparage you from going to churches like Sean Feucht leads and mega churches and Hillsong and Elevation and all the people that steal your money and spend it on lavish lifestyles for their pastors. I don't like that. I'd prefer you didn't. It's up to you, though. I know a lot of people go, and there's probably a lot of big churches out there that do good things, and I have talked about churches like that, like the one I almost took a job in Florida, who has that building for people who choose life for the children, and they like give you free daycare, and they help you out with jobs, and they give you money and groceries when you need. I love when churches do that. If there's a big church out there doing good things, cool, right? But I'm just kind of against churches who are just like service corporations. They make tons and tons of money and they spend it and waste it and all the you've seen it. And so I'm just not a huge fan of churches. But if I were to go back to church, and we are planning on it as a family, we're planning on going back to church. It would be a small church, and I would never ever in my life in a million years ever work at a church ever again. I would never charge money for my services. I would donate it. I would do those kinds of things. I would bring my gifts to the church and give them to them for free. That's what I would do. I'm not saying everybody should do that. I think pastors should be paid, and I think people who work in churches are awesome. I just think it's the upper echelons of power in churches that make it literally moot. I go to any church, any large church, and just look at the politics and the reason why people are leaving. It's messy. And I'm not saying it's not supposed to be, because we are messy. We are sinners inherently. We are not good people. None of us are. We are not good without Jesus. We are sinners saved by grace. Okay? And the beautiful thing about Jesus' grace is that it's for everybody no matter what. And it's supposed to be easy. Now, I've talked a lot about Mormonism. We haven't really talked about Catholicism and all that stuff, but theology is something that's been near and dear to my heart for a very, very, very long time. Went to Bible college. I grew up with theological pastors who built a lot into me, and that theology has stuck with me throughout time. Some has obviously shifted over the years as I've learned and grown, but that's kind of my stance on church. But I also have been seriously considering starting a series on Christian tea. Okay, like, I'm serious. I think it would be quite interesting. A lot of people would hate it, but I think there's something about it. Like, I had a series lined up that I might do, we'll see, about the artists that we grew up with as Christians. Now, I know this video, a lot of you aren't Christians, and this might be interesting to you, so stick around. That's why I want you to be here. But for those who do watch me, who grew up like me in churches, listening to, like, DC Talk and Michael W. Smith and, like, all these bands that are still touring to this day, still the number one band is, like, Newsboys out there with, you know, it's just, Christian music is bullshit, except for Forrest Frank. That guy's legit, okay? But I wanted to do a series on, like, Christian artists, what happened when they got big, where are they now, what was the faith course they took, because most of them are not Christian anymore. Like, some of them are, but, like, some of them aren't. Right? You got a lot of people didn't know Michael W. Smith was a cokehead while he was literally touring the world as a Christian artist, right? I'm not saying you can't be a cokehead and Christian at the same time, I'm just saying. These people are up on stage proclaiming the gospel every night, and like some of them are sex addicts, alcoholics, drug addicts, literally popping out on stage after snorting coke and, you know, like under oath. The guy was the main lead, not Aaron Gillespie, the other guy, like huge druggie. And they're like I toured with a lot of these bands, not under oath, but I toured, and we saw how bands were behind the scenes, and like almost all of them who claimed to be Christian, none of them were, except for TFK. Okay, TFK, Trevor McNeven, to this day is still that same guy. Amazing. There are some great ones out there, but I wanted to start a series on Christian tea. And I think it's really interesting because I rag a lot on Mormons, and for good reason, because they're not Christian and they claim to be. But there is a lot of Christian theology out there that, like, and even mainstream Christian theology that I adhere to, there's a lot of leaders in my industry that are just shit. Okay, you got Mark Driscoll, you got Sean Feucht, you got a whole bunch of guys that just have no business doing it. And I think that's really, really important to bring what they're doing to light. I just think it's people don't like it, especially in churches. Like, well, they think that leaders in churches are above it. It's the opposite. They should be more scrutinized than everybody else because they are leading people. And the Bible is very clear on if you're teaching theology, if you're teaching as a Christian leader, you're going to be judged way more harshly when it comes to getting to the gates when you're judged. Because if you claim to be a representative of Christ and you lead people astray, you're going to be in shit. Okay, you're going to be judged way more harshly than that person who wasn't a teacher, who didn't claim that thing, who was just a regular person. Like, I'd be scared if I was a wealth and prosperity minister right now. I really would be. And you got Benny Hinn out there and people like that who are sort of trying to change what they're doing, and they're trying to repent later in life because they're almost dead, and they're scared of hell. That's what they're scared of, and they should be. And so that brings me to Sean Feucht. Okay, now Sean Feucht was a guy I've been following for a little while. If you're wondering why I got the noodles on the back, that's because that's his hair. Okay, Sean Feucht was a Bethel worship pastor, and don't get me started on Bethel. Okay, don't get me started, but we're going to get started a little bit. Bethel, the church that does grave soaking. And if you don't know what grave soaking is, they believe they can go to the graveside of a prolific Christian person who was holy and blah, 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 and they think they can suck the holiness out of the dead person in the grave. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it is. I'm not kidding. Bethel, the church that puts gold glitter in their HVAC system, so when you're having worship moments, people are like, look, there's gold falling. But it's never been proven to be gold. It's glitter. Okay? The same people that say there's an angel feather here. The same people that say that we can turn your molars into gold. The same people that, like, they fake it. Basically, Bethel is fake. And don't forget the Wake Up Olive story from Bethel. One of the craziest story you've ever heard in Christianity, in my opinion, where the people's daughter died of SIDS or whatever it was, and they left her on a slab in the mortuary, and were praying publicly out loud with Bethel, declaring that Jesus was going to raise her from the dead. It's called Wake Up Olive, hashtag. It was a massive, massive movement. It was a huge scandal because Olive didn't wake up. And they were so 100% sure that because of who they were as Bethelites, and that church was doing such good things for Christ, that God was going to honor this worship leader whose daughter died and going to raise her from the dead. They were so sure. Okay. And it never happened. And so what does that do? It makes people not want to believe. Right, because they are one of the most prolific religions, like Christianity, churches in the religion, and they're up there declaring something that's not going to happen, man. Right, and so that's where Sean Feucht came from, that crazy church. But I googled it. Yeah, it's grok. I was like, where is Sean Feucht from, or why did he leave? Why did he leave Bethel? The reasons for Sean Feucht's departure from Bethel Church are not entirely clear, as there's no definitive public statement from Feucht or Bethel Church explicitly detailing the circumstances. Now, that's crazy that a worship leader leads a church and then you don't get a statement, nothing, just nothing. These churches, they recycle and bring in and headhunt worship leaders like they're baseball stars, like they're sports stars, right? Like they're athletes. That's how this works. Churches are not above headhunting other and bringing them in and paying them more. It's all about money, everybody. Churches, the top leadership and worship leaders and all that kind of stuff, it is all about where the money is. Where the best technology is, where the most opportunities are. It's not about Jesus. I hate to break it to you. I'm sorry. I really do. And some of those artists out there are great people. But I'm telling you, they're going where the money is. They're going where they can make the most and most opportunity exists. Okay, sorry. It's just the way it is. It's not has nothing to do with Jesus. It really doesn't. And I'm not saying that's for all. I'm talking about the top level guys, like the Elevations, the Hillsongers, the big ones, the top ones. Okay, I'm talking about those guys. They're like they get traded around and they get paid millions of dollars to do what they do. Okay. And it's not about Jesus. Just go to if you ever had the opportunity to tour as a musician or be a musician backstage at any of these events, you will know that none of these people are Christian. Like, they don't act it. They think they're rock stars. They get treated like rock stars. They have security and shit like that. Like, go to North Point Church. I used to love Andy Stanley. I don't like Andy Stanley anymore. I used to love North Point Church. Okay. Try to meet with your pastor at North Point Church, Andy Stanley. Try to meet with him. See how close you can get to him. Right? This guy has to walk around with 24-hour security. This is a church, everybody. Okay? You're not going to meet your pastor at these churches. So, again, I know I hate these churches. I hate it. I wish church would go back to the way it was. And it is trending towards that, which is good. But anyway, so we don't know why Sean Feucht left Bethel, but Bethel's also shit. So, there you go. So, anyway, here's the history of Sean Feucht. Born in 1983, grew up in Montana and Virginia, son of a dermatologist who worked with Pat Robertson's Operating Blessing. Don't care. Former worship leader of Bethel, Redding, California, associated with Bethel music and the New Apostolic Reformation, NAR. Founded Burn 24/7, a global prayer and worship movement while attending Oral Roberts University. Established Light a Candle 2010 for global missions and child sponsorship. Hold the Line to engage young. I mean, there's already enough of those. Maybe there's. We got enough though. Give your money to the reputable sources. Engage young people in conservative political activism. Now, if you're going to be a political activist, that's fine. If you're going to do it with the right and claim Christianity, fine. Just don't be in ministry. Okay? Don't do that. Technically, legally, churches aren't even allowed to engage in political activism from the stage. Then you have to start paying taxes. Launched Let Us Worship 2020 movement, hosting outdoor worship events initially to protest COVID-19 restrictions. That's how I discovered Sean Feucht. Now, he was doing what was called super spreader events. Now, we look back on COVID, and I'm mad about how I fell for it too. People wearing masks and 6-foot distancing, but closing playgrounds, but leaving Walmart and Home Depot open. Like, it was bullshit, okay? It was bullshit. But we were going off what we had, the information we had at the time, by our leaders. Now, we could talk about that all day long, about how the next one comes along and nobody's going to listen. And they messed up big time, okay? Big time. But Sean Feucht was doing these events. And even though I look back on it now, I'm like, cool. Like, if we had the information we had now, that I would understand, fighting in the face of that. But as a Christian at the time, this guy's out there defying the laws and doing these things he shouldn't be doing as a Christian. Look, I understand political activism. Just don't do it as a preacher in a ministry event. It doesn't. Doing worship music and like coming together in spite of people who are protesting it is not. How do I say this? It's not graceful. It's not loving, right? It's anger. You're doing it out of anger. If you are doing worship events, and this is happening right now all over the U.S., if you're doing worship events to counter protest like LGBTQ and stuff like that, you're doing it wrong. That is not what worship is about. It's about connecting with your creator and giving him adoration. Okay, that's what it's about. And when you do these things as a political movement, you're it up. You're stupid for doing that. Okay, because you're diluting what it actually is, and you're using it as a political bludgeon that just makes people hate you even more. Why do you want people to hate Christianity even more? So that's what Sean Feucht does. He uses worship events to counter protest things that he doesn't agree with, that thinks that the Bible is against. That is not what that is for. Okay, first of all, I don't think there's any biblical justification for doing that. People are like, well, Jesus went and flipped the tables and stuff, but he wasn't leading worship and being like, we're doing this thing because we're counter protesting this other thing. Jesus would never do something like that. That's crazy that they're doing that. And so I was upset that he was out there defying the laws as a Christian, making everybody else look bad. And he also looks bad because this is his hair, right? And he did it because he has underlying motives for what he does. He knew it was going to get him a lot of attention, a lot of fame, and a lot of money. And that's exactly what it did. Okay. He's a Christian singer-songwriter, missionary activist, ran unsuccessfully as a Republican for California's 3rd Congressional District. So this guy ran as a Republican in California. And he wonders why he lost. Well, he lost because he's a dickhole. Gained prominence for worship protests during COVID-19, defying public health mandates, later targeting cities with social unrest. So he went where the George Floyd protests were and, again, did these worship events, which, again, really? They're going to hate you for doing that, so why would you bring worship of Christianity into something? Like, it's almost like we know that Christians are going to be, and it says in the Bible, we're going to be hated. But why would you want to bring that on yourself? It's like, it's going to happen anyway. So why would you go to a place where it's going to make people hate you more? That's silly. Okay, that's so dumb. I visited the White House in 2019 for a faith briefing with President Trump aligning MAGA and far-right Christian movements. I mean, that's not a surprise. You can align MAGA and far-right Christian movements for sure, 100%. Public persona describes himself as a Jesus follower, missionary, art, blah, who cares? Main scandals, here it is, financial mismanagement. We're going to talk about that today. They called them super spreader events. Let Us Worship concerts started in July 2020 at Reading Sundial Bridge, were criticized as super spreader events due to their defiance of COVID-19 restrictions. Held in over 100 cities, these gatherings often lacked masks or social distancing, and that was the point of them, okay? Again, looking back, I agree that we messed up. We were stupid for what we did. But at the time, when you're given something, churches, have a responsibility to be like, look, we're going to adhere to these laws. And because that's what we think, you can meet as a church, and churches adapted. They absolutely adapted, and they can adapt. And churches in China aren't even allowed to operate as churches out in the public. And churches in China are probably have the most people in them because they operate underground. And it will happen. You cannot stop people from meeting for Christ. You're never going to stop it. It's going to go underground and it's going to get bigger. Okay, so it can happen without us having to go physically to church. So I understand churches are upset that they didn't because people weren't tithing. That's the only reason churches were upset about that whole thing, because we're not tithing. That's it. Not because they couldn't meet in person and do shitty worship music. It's because they weren't getting money for tithing, paying their bills and wasting money. So he's known for political extremism. Feucht's alignment with far-right figures, including Turning Point USA, blah, 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 Proud Boys, and State of Jefferson supporters. Now, you can do all these things. Just stop claiming it as ministry. Don't do that. Because Jesus wouldn't be on just the side of Proud Boys and just the side of, far right and far left people. Jesus would be for everybody. That's the thing. And Sean Feucht is taking one side of this whole thing and saying, you guys are all wrong, f*** you. Right? And that's nothing that Jesus would do. Not even a little bit. Now, Jesus would just love everyone equally and say, come to the middle and let's just talk about what really matters. Whereas these far-right political activists who are Christian, who are using worship music and stuff like that to be activists, that's wrong. I'm sorry. That's absolutely wrong. It's not what it's meant for. And I'll say that to the end of time. I guess he did a documentary as well, and he used some of my footage because he knows I don't like him, and that's fine. And it's fair use. But Sean Feucht, I know you're watching this. You're an asshole. Spiritual abuse claims, 2025. Anti-LGBT rhetoric. Feucht has faced backlash for inflammatory statements such as calling drag queens demonic and perverting the minds of children, prompting faith leaders in the Pacific Northwest to denounce his rhetoric as hateful and dangerous. His use of his daughter in a 2020 video to oppose Target's Pride merchandise further amplified. Yeah, again, he uses his kid in... Don't use your kid in political protests either. Just don't do that. This guy just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Okay, so... then this popped up. So we're coming up to the point where we're like, I hated Sean Feucht. And that's just the way it was. Nobody liked him, actually. And then he's just been operating as a far-right, crazy person, but saying, I'm a worship pastor, I'm doing these things, and I think it's wrong. And he just exists to troll people on Twitter, basically, is like his thing. He takes the shittiest take and he attaches it to Christianity, and then he's like, yeah, and then he reaps the benefits of the engagement that he gets. He's an engagement, rage-farming Christian nationalist is what he is, okay? So Sean Feucht accused of mismanaging millions in ministry revenue. This is by Christianity Today. It's a pretty big, it's probably, if arguably, the biggest Christian news organization that exists, and they are not afraid to call out bad pastors and bad actors, okay? On a new whistleblower site, former employees call for the evangelists to be removed from positions of leadership and financial stewardship. For years in city after city, Christy Gafford would invite Christians to come pray and worship with Sean. It's time to take back this ground for the kingdom, she wrote. Facebook has Feucht toured state capitals in 23 and 24. She shared a picture of demonstrators waving flags on the Capitol lawn in Salem, and a clip of praise dancers twirling in the rotunda. Praise dancers. Gafford said she saw God on the move through Feucht. You didn't see that. In his ministry, she served for 8 years, leading a local chapter of Feucht's Burn 24/7 prayer movement, eventually becoming a national director and communication director for the organization. But this week, Gafford and 4 other former leaders denounced Feucht, saying they can no longer encourage anyone to partner with him in any ministry capacity, and calling for him to be removed from positions of leadership and financial stewardship. The former leaders published a report Sunday listing allegations of mismanagement and claiming the preacher and right-wing protester avoided accountability as his ministry's annual revenue shot up to the millions. This is why he did it, everybody. He capitalized on a moment, and he did it. Any Christian out there grifting for millions of dollars should be automatically ignored by Christians. I'm saying automatically, if you are using Christianity to get rich, automatically you are no longer, it's heretical. I don't care. You can be a millionaire and a Christian, no problem. But if you're using Christianity as a grift to make money, off. Okay? I mean, when I say make money, I mean build wealth, generational wealth. I'm talking, Sean Feucht, I'm talking megachurch pastors. And if you live in a multi-million-dollar mansion and drive 10 cars and all this and have airplanes and shit like that, you're automatically off. Automatically. Okay? There's no business going to that church if that's how the pastor lives his life. I'm serious. Okay? Now, if you're independently wealthy and then become a pastor, it's a little bit different. And you'll see all these people like, my pastor doesn't take salary because he sells his books. Yeah, and the church buys 500,000 of those books and then he gets in his pocket. Come on now. Come on. Feucht, a former Bethel church worship leader who led us worship events, took off during COVID-19 pandemic, has founded multiple organizations over the years, including Sean Feucht Ministries. Imagine naming your ministry after your name. Not like Jesus Ministries, but Sean Feucht Ministries. Come on. Burn 24/7 Listener Light a Candle. We talked about that earlier. Camp Elah. The long noodle-haired musician unsuccessfully ran for Congress as a Republican in California. 2020 has made conservative politics a prominent part of his ministry brand, repeatedly leading worship at the White House under President Donald Trump. Most recently, Feucht has been drawing crowds for pop-up worship protests. Nope. That is mutually exclusive. You cannot put this next to protest. That's not what it's for. And the fact that they're doing it and people are going to these things, they're going to wake up to this. Don't do that. In Boston, Philadelphia, on the website Truth and Freedom Stories, the former employees shared details from financial records and first-hand accounts of his mismanagement. They described Feucht as bringing in people in with his sense of evangelical mission, but underpaying staff, overstating attendance at his events, and diverting donations and failing to properly disclose spending. Every church does this. They do not properly disclose their spending, and here's why. They don't have to. Churches, 501c and shit like that, don't have to. There's certain rules you have to do and certain that they don't. And churches will only give what they legally have to. Some churches are more open about it, and those churches are awesome. But most churches, especially like Elevation, Hillsong, Feucht's ministries, they aren't giving you. They're not telling you what pastors are making. Go ask your pastor what he makes. I dare you. Put a formal request through an email through your church and ask them. See what happens. Feucht has not publicly responded to the report and did not yet reply. He has public here. We're going to look at it. As noted last year by Ministry Watch, Sean Feucht ministry revenue jumped from $283,000 to $5.3 million between 2019 and 2020 as Feucht's worship protests gained traction around the U.S. But because Feucht petitioned the IRS to classify Sean Feucht Ministries and blah, 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 he's non-profit. He doesn't have to show anything. The Form 990 is an essential document that allows donors to evaluate the effectiveness of ministry, said Warren Cole-Smith, president of Ministry Watch. We have no idea how much Sean Feucht is making. It's no surprise that we're seeing former employees come forward with concerns. The former leaders accuse Sean Feucht of failing to track expenses or keep receipts, using ministry cards for personal expenses at times and not reporting income from merchandise sales. That's also known as fraud. That's what happened with Hillsong, and they got charged for it. That's exactly what they did. It's the same damn thing. Why is this happening? Why the top levels of ministry, like famous people, always f*** up like this? Always. It's never like, oh, none of them do. They all do it. Richie Booth, who worked as a volunteer providing administrative support from Burn, blah, 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 claimed the workers were underpaid or not paid at all, blocked from viewing credit card statements and treated as staff but not reported in tax filings. If you're a volunteer, though, you're not getting paid. I don't know how that works. Form 990 filed in 2020 for Sean Feucht Ministries prior to the reclassification lists Feucht as the only paid employee, along with 36 independent contractors. That's how we save taxes. Though the whistleblower said that several worked over 40 hours a week. The whistleblower site documents 10 properties that Feucht personally owns in California, Montana, Pennsylvania, and millions of dollars of the properties classified as tax-exempt parsonages owned by his ministries. Now, this is where the fraud's going to really hit home, and I think he's going to end up in jail for this, because if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, but I don't think I am, a lot of these parsonages are Airbnbs that he's making money on. And if you don't know what a parsonage is, it's where the government allows a pastor to own a home that is called a parsonage, which is owned by the church, so they don't have to pay rent or mortgage, and it's tax exempt. So it's like the old way of like Catholic churches and old churches where the pastor lived at the church. There's a little residence beside it, and that's called a parsonage. Now parsonage is wherever. I was clergy, and I got a parsonage tax exemption, which was like a lot of money, by the way, every year. Pastors, Yes. I'm talking, I think it was like, I'm not sure how much it is a month depending on your mortgage. It's a big write-off. Like I wrote off almost $20,000 to $30,000 of taxes just because of my parsonage. Just letting you know, pastors live in a very tax lucrative lifestyle. So he owns tons of properties which were purchased by his ministries, which he owns, which the ministries are in his name, but it's 501c, so they're tax exempt. So not only does he own all these properties, he rents them out for profit, and he doesn't pay taxes on them. Smith previously told the Roy's report that despite having over $5 million revenue, Feucht's ministry spent about $1.1 million on ministry expenses. That means the ministry's assets ballooned more than $4.5 million. There's nothing wrong with growth, but it seems reasonable to expect that a ministry with more than $4 million in cash should be spending more money on the ministry it has promised to do. But he hasn't. Burn 24/7 has 3-member global board, which includes Feucht, a 4-member global leadership team. The organization accepts online donations, a landing page that assures donor 100% of profits go directly to our work around the world. And it doesn't. That's a lie too. The donation webpage for Sean Feucht, I wonder if this is still up, says the donations will be immediately invested back into the various needs of the ministry as we continue to mandate the mandate God has given us. Is some of that mandate buying properties all over the U.S.? Is that a mandate? And what he'll do is he'll use the excuse like, well, we put people up that come from ministry and that's where they stay. I mean, are they staying there for a year? Or are you Airbnb-ing it for the rest of the year? Come on now. And the site accepts donations, cash, cryptocurrency, and stocks. And here it is. I wonder if they've deleted. Yeah, he still left it up. Don't donate to this asshole. Why are people doing that? Gafford, who worked for Byrne, said Feucht would take the stage at events but didn't engage behind the scenes. That's that's all these artists, okay? They think they're rock stars and they act like divas. I'm not even joking. Don't ever meet your Christian hero, okay? I've overlooked the gross negligence of leadership. I've excused Sean for being apostolic for being capacity, but simply taking more responsibility myself. Gafford wrote in her testimony, yet now I see things somewhat differently and know the deep impact the leadership has on someone. She wrote that Mike Bickle's downfall at the International House of Prayer in Kansas City caused her to re-examine the culture of her own organization. Gafford lost her position last year over communication around Byrne's decision to part ways with the global movement. Now, this is what happens. This is why it's important to call out pastors and shit who are doing this, because it inspires other people to look deeper into their ministries, and that's important. This just goes on. It's crazy. So that's basically it. And so this is the formal statement from them. This is made just for Sean Feucht, by the way. Financial, spiritual, and moral allegations against Sean Feucht. Formal statement. We, the undersigned, submit this formal statement to provide a documented account of long-standing and serious moral, ethical, financial, organizational, and governance failures involving John Christopher Feucht. The guy doesn't even use his own name. John Christopher. Where the hell did you get Sean Feucht from? Okay. And the 4 religious organizations that founded and directs. Our testimony is based on direct experience and first-hand observations of Sean over extended period of time. Now, there's so many Christians out there already on Twitter being like, it's not a big deal. I don't see a big deal. If you don't see a big deal with fraud, then off. Then I guess you guys belong together. Based on the documented and corroborated nature of these concerns, we strongly urge that Sean Feucht be removed from positions of leadership and financial stewardship. This statement is made in good faith for the purpose of preventing further harm and upholding standards of biblical accountability, transparency, and justice. 1 Timothy 5:20 admonishes us to publicly share with a wider body when a leader is consistently confronted by their sin and does not repent. So it means that they went to him privately, and he probably told them F off or fired them. That's what happened here. And if that comes out, that's the case, that he was that they went to him biblically. 1 Timothy 5:20. If they did that biblically and he ignored it, Sean Feucht is not a Jesus follower. He is ignoring what the Bible says about what he was doing, and then they were forced to do it publicly. That's how this works. If you have a problem with your ministry, biblically you are meant to go to your pastor first, one-on-one or with a witness, to confront them about what they're doing wrong and saying, this is what you did. I did that same thing before I released the recording of my firing. I went to them with that and I said, here's what I have. I'd like to talk to you guys about this. And you know what they did instead is they called a lawyer on me. That's it. They didn't want to talk to me about it. So I released it publicly. That's literally the biblical way of doing it. Okay? Anyway, they say he's unrepentant. To remain silent about the stranger of Sean's sin is not biblical or leveling and to dishonor Sean and these board members. Sean's victims and those who are exposed to him via social media. We have consistently witnessed Sean publicly point his finger at the sin of the world, yet repeatedly fail to take responsibility for acknowledging, repenting, and turning away from his own serious and habitual sin. He negligence of money, all this kind of stuff. Executive summary. Look at this website. This is crazy. Financial allegations. Now, there's a podcast here called Bodies Behind the Bus Pod. I'll follow. And podcast dedicated to sharing the stories of spiritual abuse survivors, because being body behind the bus is not that. And I like this. This is the type of stuff that I'd like to do on my channel. So, but this is very, very important. This is what she says.
The one of us who has been paying attention to Sean Feucht is shocked by this report that came out yesterday. Former staff that worked at the organizations that Sean Feucht runs came forward with some serious, well-documented allegations.
Oh yeah, we were looking at that. I'll come back to this. So this section outlines several real estate holdings linked to both Sean Feucht Ministries and John Christopher Feucht personally, including Parsonages in Washington, San Juan Capistrano, California, as well as personal residences in California, Montana, and Pennsylvania. How many houses do you need, bro? How many wives do you have? It's going to come out soon too, eventually, that he's going to have that too, I bet, allegedly. Sean Feucht Ministries owns several significant properties that are classified as parsonages, a term typically referred to housing provided for religious leaders or ministry staff. This suggests these properties are intended for the residential use of Sean Feucht or other key individuals involved in the leadership and operations of Sean Feucht Ministry. So this is Washington, D.C. parsonage. Let's take a look at this house. I bet you it's crazy. Washington, D.C. because of his political activism. It's sort of like a Brownstone. It's like Montreal, actually. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, this is probably worth a lot of money. Yeah, $931,000 for this house. And before he says you're doxing, these are just, he doesn't live at these houses. He rents them. Purchased by Sean Feucht Ministries as a parsonage named Camp Ella. Okay, San Juan Capistrano. Oh my God, look at this house. This is a parsonage. $3.6 million. 5,800 square feet. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the Lord is good. The Lord is good to Sean Feucht. Oh my God, this asshole. Purchased by Sean as a parsonage. Wow. Tax payment $9,000. Montana hunting. Look at this. Like, how do you think you're going to get away with this, Sean? You think you're just going to straight up just walk away? 40 acres of land with a cabin purchased by Sean Feucht. 15-minute drive from personal Montana cabin appears to be used by Feucht family for hunting. That sounds like it's a parsonage. So it's just 40 acres of land. It's like a cottage. Properties personally owned by John Christopher Feucht. California properties. Redding, California. This is his property in California. Holy shit, that's a huge property. And don't forget, guys, California ain't cheap. Okay? It ain't cheap. Valued at $764,000. So he uses one in California to rent out. It's his rental property. So it's not where he lives. Dana Point property in Tawny Point. This is rental is $3,900 a month. Again, another rental that he owns. Another one. Like, holy shit, man. Montana property, Big Fork property. This is $1 million status current. This is his property there. Oh my gosh. It pays to be a grifting son of a bitch, doesn't it? And these are Pennsylvania rental properties. This is how many he owns in Pennsylvania. These are just rental properties. 244,000, 274, 365. These are like, they're just low-end properties that he owns and he rents out and makes money on. That's what he does. Recently sold property. He sold it for $1.7 million. This recent sale of a high-value personal residence indicates ongoing real estate activity involving John Christopher Feucht and suggests a degree of personal wealth. This transaction, a degree? Look at, just here alone is over $1 million, like $2 million worth of properties. This guy is grifting. Holy shit. Reporting fraud, page 1 of 990s for Sean Feucht Ministries and the Light Candle. False report that both ministries use 0 volunteers. The Light Candle 990s are incomplete. They fail to include Sean J, which discloses how Feucht's compensation is determined in Schedule R, which discloses that Sean Feucht Ministries, Light a Candle Project are related organizations. Credit card fraud. Routinely observes Sean using business credit cards for personal expenses. Donation diversion. Redirecting donations to personal accounts or unauthorized ventures. Now, who did this? Who did this, guys? Hillsong did this. The whole upper echelon leadership of Hillsong did this. They were paying for exorbitant, like, private jets, bags, shoes, clothes, haircuts, maids. They did it all. This is what he's doing. And he's gonna, you mark my words, you heard it here, he's going to jail. I know that Trump's in and Trump's a fan of Sean Feucht and maybe he won't go for the next 3 years, but he's going to be held accountable. He's going to go to jail, and if he's not accountable in this life, he'll be held accountable in the next life. Why does every Christian grifter have to live an exorbitantly wealthy lifestyle? They're like, God wants me to have this. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Not off the back of Christianity, he doesn't. Not off the back of theology, off of grifting from worship ministries. That's not what it was meant for. That is crazy. Heretical to do that. Payroll fraud. inflating salaries or hours worked. Stories that churches do this all the time, by the way, everybody. So it's just not just him, that's everybody. Failure to pay prevailing wage, minimum wage. One employee himself listed as 990, 36 independent contractors despite several working 40 hours a week. Private benefit. Organizations' activities should be directed towards some exempt purposes. This activity should not serve the private interest or private benefit of any individual organization. Several seem to have observed this. Organization is prohibited from allowing this income or asset to benefit insiders, and this benefits all him. All those properties are owned by him or the organizations that he runs that he owns. Why does he need 5 parsonages? I would love to hear his excuse, and we're going to read what he said. Donor fraud, embezzlement, wrongful conversion of property or funds that were donated and converting that property or those funds to his or own personal use. And he does use them. The act of embezzlement is complete the moment the official converts the money to his own use, even though he then has the intent to restore it. Some observed him potentially using donations to invest in personal properties. Others witnessed Feucht occasionally writing himself a check for renting his own cabin in Montana. So he's writing, this is fraud. He owns his cabin. It's a parsonage for one of his nonprofits. He writes himself a check and cashes himself a check from his money. It's a way to get around the taxes. And they also witnessed him pull cash out for short-term teams to take abroad and then trip leaders and make them pay tax on funds that were distributed for a trip. Oh my gosh. Multiple employees observed dearth of receipts in a decade of Sean's nonprofit dealings. Example, failure to report income, and you know he's doing this. CDs, apparel, paid in cash, and unreported on taxes. This guy's going to jail! This girl calls it out here too. Here, I'll show you. Right here.
Take a gander at Sean Feucht's real estate properties with me. Let's dig deeper.
Can't play that song. Anyway, I just did that. But basically, Sean Feucht is gonna go to jail, I think. And here's the thing, guys. If you think this is exclusive to Sean Feucht, it's not. Almost every church does some level of this, whether or not it's taking advantage of volunteers and claiming it, whether or not it's underpaying people, whether or not it's, not taking receipts in for certain things. Now, the church that I worked on, I gotta say this, they didn't. I got in shit if I missed a receipt for $1. Okay, so there are some that don't, but I'm telling you, there are other ways that churches do it, and there's a lot of waste that goes on. But these guys who operate without any, I don't know, policing or like have any other boards behind them, and they just, or they have their friends as their board of directors and stuff like that, they're gonna take advantage. They're gonna spend the money. I mean, ministries aren't supposed to be hoarding money. They're not supposed to be holding on to it. You're supposed to be spending it on ministry. Churches who are nonprofit aren't allowed to bank the money. They're not allowed to be like, look, we got millions, even though the Mormons do it. I don't know how they get away with it. You're not supposed to bank the money. Donations are there so they can be spent on ministry. If you hoard the money, you're not helping anybody. You're just keeping the money and it's making more money. That's crazy that they're allowed to get it. Change that at least. If you're not going to tax churches, which you should, at a certain level of, I think you should tax higher level churches, not the smaller ones. But at a certain point, you can change the rules and say, look, you're not allowed to keep money. You're just not. If you bring an extra $100,000, you better damn well spend it on, give it to donations, something. Do not hoard money. That's one rule you can change instantly that would change the dynamic of churches across the U.S. So here's what Sean Feucht had to say about all of this that went down. First of all, he's turned off his comments on Twitter, because here he is hugging Pete Hegseth. Because look who I get to hug, look who I get to meet. That's all he gives a shit about. This guy cares about money and power. That's it. He doesn't give a shit about Jesus. He doesn't care about anything else. Oh, he blocked me, that asshole. Yes. Maybe that's why I can't leave comments. Nature is healing. God is moving. White House will not celebrate or recognize Pride Month. See, that's all he gives a shit about. Right now, this guy is going to be investigated, and this is all he cares about. The grift is all that matters. He's just ignoring it, but he did say a couple of things. Birds of a feather working together. When Soros backed Christianity Today, now it's Soros backed, right? Rolling Stone and the LGBT mafia gang up to attack Christians, you know a big breakthrough is coming. So what he's saying is that because he's been called out for breaking the law and, stealing money and using it for his own personal use, even though it's ministry money, that's the devil. That's the devil. Christians. Never back down, he says. He's like, something's coming. And here's what's coming. You're going to end up in jail dropping the soap. That's what's coming. Because your hair, that ain't going to go over well in prison, my lad. Hey, Greg, does Soros back Christianity Today, and why the publication has fallen so far from the truth? No evidence suggests George Soros directly funds Christianity Today. So they're just going to do that because that's the pivot, right? They're going to have to redirect because they don't want to. He doesn't want to come out and say, here's what I do with these properties that I bought with ministry money. Here's me writing my own check. Like this, he's going to jail. Like he's going to be investigated. Does breakthrough entitle prison time? Typical charismatic cult response. All right, but open the books. You're not that important. There's a breakthrough coming, which is people are slowly seeing your grift. That's true. How's Sean, the master grifter, doing today? See, he doesn't have any love and support, but he's a rage baiter on the internet. Christian rage baiter. Make that make sense. He said God will not be mocked because Cynthia Arrivio is playing Jesus in an upcoming musical that's not really Christian-based musical, by the way. And then I said, this you, bro? God will not be mocked, but you're allowed to mock him with the misuse of the funds that he has given you. Here's another thing he wrote. Do not answer a fool according to his folly. So he'll pick and choose scriptures, right? But then he'll ignore the 1 Timothy where they approached him about it all and he just ignored them or told them to F off, and now he's being called out for it publicly. He'll ignore that one, but he'll make this one. See, he will never... He's gonna have to address it eventually, so he's not really addressing it. Everybody hates Sean Feucht, and for good reason. He's a dickhead. Worship leader Sean Feucht is facing explosive accusations of spiritual abuse, financial misconduct by 5 former staffers. And those staffers, I would love to have you on my show to talk about this entire thing. Come on my show, happy to have you. Big podcast about it. We'll talk about Sean Feucht. We don't have to be mean. I can hold off the meanness for a little while. If you want to come on, use my platform to get the message out there. Happy to have you. This is a tone-deaf response I received from Sean Feucht about Facebook asking a legitimate question about the current accusations against him. You need to open the books and be transparent. I sponsor a child with your Light a Candle program, and I'm thinking of canceling because I can't be sure where the money is going. Yeah. He's like, you're welcome to come to India with us anytime and see the incredible... Yeah. Thank you, but I can't afford to go to India. He was going to India with Sean Feucht. Remember Sean Feucht? He's a revivalist I tracked as part of S2. I've got a big update. He is guilty of moral and ethical misconduct according to a comprehensive news thing. And here's the thing. Don't forget that the people that are blowing the whistle on Sean Feucht are people who've worked closely with him for the past 5 years. These aren't randos. These are people who know the inside information. That's why they're called whistleblowers. And he's just going to be like, the devil. I think in this scenario, if you got 6 people in a little bubble and 5 of them are speaking out against the one, it's probably you're the devil. Sean Feucht, you're the one. Okay, maybe consider that. Throwback to when Sean Feucht listed his worn jerseys for sale on eBay. Do you think that he claimed these taxes on these purchased $150 jerseys? You think he claimed the taxes on it, or you just put the money in his pocket? He's gonna be investigated. He's gotta be. Several years ago, a young husband and wife came to my house distraught after attending Sean Feucht's worship internship. They told me that every night Sean Feucht would smoke cigars, drink whiskey, and get intoxicated with the interns. They were very concerned about this. They said that they'd occasionally drank wine, but were not okay with the amount of alcohol consumption that was happening on a regular basis in the internship. I also know that whenever Sean comes into the Charlotte, North Carolina area, he spends time drinking excessively amounts of alcohol with Rick Joyner and other leaders. You can't do this. If you're going to be a Christian leader, you got to abstain from this shit. You really do. I'm sorry. It may not be a sin, but you got to abstain from it. Optics matter. Right on cue, this is what Sean Feucht posted about on his Facebook page last night. Seemingly in response to recent accusations of financial, spiritual, moral misconduct. Birds of a feather. You're a bird of a feather. The bird's ass feathers. My obvious prediction about what's coming soon from Sean Feucht. Satan's attacking me because I'm doing the Lord's work. You're not doing the Lord's work, bro. You're actually setting it back. I like this shirt. Super spender. I like that. This Sean Feucht story is getting major headlines. This guy's going to have a very difficult road ahead. All 4 of his organizations are facing allegations of abuse and mismanagement. Sean Feucht has been accused of mismanaging. This is Christianity Today's thing. And here, this is where people this is why I hate Christians sometimes who go to churches who are just sold out. And why would TC Magazine be specifically focused on Feucht with accusations of a whistleblower? Why not? Why wouldn't they? What kind of stupid tweet is that? Are you out of your mind? The whistleblowers have come forward to actually Sean's long-term staff. Why would you... The seriousness of the charges are what matter, and they are pretty serious. It's fraud. Yeah, embezzlement. That's a pretty big one. See, a lot of people don't. They're like, oh yeah, it's not that big of a deal. The Venn diagram of people who don't believe this reporting and the people who brought Trump NFTs is a perfect circle. The fundamentalist grift that keeps on giving dysfunctions harm and okay, I don't even read that shit. Sadly, his terrible theology and way of being early on, which flagged many of us, didn't flag them. He should not have been allowed to get to this point. Agreed. I needed to put that on my channel, even though I know it's not really a lot of what I do here, but I think it was really important for me to do this, okay? Sean Feucht is a wolf in sheep's clothing. He does not belong in ministry. He shouldn't be out there pretending to be a follower of Christ or leading people to Christ or whatever the thing he's doing. He's literally just like everybody else, and he's just one more cog in the little wheel of the assholes that run ministries at a higher level. All of them do this. And I say all of them, and people are like, it's not all of them, but okay, well, it seems to be all of them, and they all seem to fall one at a time. I think the judgment of the church right now is huge. It's happening. The fall of Hillsong was a huge deal, everybody. Like, I don't know if you know this. If you haven't seen the documentary, go watch it. The fall of Hillsong was humongous. It was like, that's a literal giant, if not the biggest giant in evangelical ministry in the world. And it fell. You mark my words. Okay, Elevation is one of the next 3 or 4 that's going to fall huge. There's like a pastor out there from one of the other big ones who like tried to hire a hitman to kill his daughter's ex-husband, right? You're going to see these guys fall one by one. The judgment is like, I take solace in knowing that God is going to judge these people, and it's going to be here on earth. We're going to get to see it. God has got to make examples of these people, or we're going to continue to do these things. But they'll claim Satan is doing it, and they what they don't see, because they're so blind to the power and wealth that they got, is that that's God doing it to you. They can't see it, and it's so crazy. And I know this stuff doesn't interest you, but it interests me, and so I'm glad that you watched this video. Sean Feucht is an asshole, and also if you go to church, guys, you need to start holding your church accountable. It's really, really important. Okay, you got to start asking the hard questions. You got to start making sure that your church is doing the right thing, or because it's detrimental to the body as a whole when churches do stupid shit like this. Okay, it's bad. Also, go to smaller churches and donate your time and your money to those places who do good things for the community. Okay, everybody take a deep breath. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you indulging my craziness on this topic, because it really is, it hits close to home to me. I worked this industry for 10 plus years of my life. It was a huge part of who I was and who I am still, and I feel personally like I should be calling this stuff out, and I'm glad that I do it, and I'm glad that you're here to watch it. So Sean Feucht, if you're watching, and I know you are, okay, hope your day's worse, hope you go to jail. You better cut your hair before you go to jail, that's what I'm saying. It's so wavy. Anyway, thanks for being here. Don't forget, someone has a crush on you, and I'll see you when I see you.